Alright everyone, now we have a not-so-funny video. It's still about a cell phone, but it's one that's more on the dystopian side as opposed to the haha you really fucked up on Twitter side. San Francisco's police department is trying to convince the city to allow them to use lethal force involving robots under certain exceptional circumstances. Now here are several problems. The basic premise of keeping the police alive and maybe taking out some hostage taker more efficiently because the robot doesn't have to worry about if it gets shot at because it's a fucking robot. The basic premise is a good one. You potentially save a lot of lives. You also potentially save money. You don't have to pay the robot hazardous duty pay in order to go down the hallway towards the mass shooter. Sounds good. Think of the children. It'll save lives. See, that's exactly why I oppose this, why you should oppose this, and why it should not even be considered. The premise is too juicy for it to be rejected as far as mission creep goes in the future. Here's the problem. Let's say that they determine that exceptional circumstances you have active shooter, already you have casualties, the person is clearly not willing to give themselves up, they're not willing to negotiate, they got a goddamn suicide vest on, they're going to die anyway. Let's send in the bot, whether it's flying or rolling along on treads or whatever. The bot takes the shot, kills that person. Maybe you save some hostages or something. Would you not suspect that eventually, if you greenlight this, they will begin pushing for the use of lethal robots in other situations as well? Well, maybe robots should be able to hover alongside the car that's trying to get away, and it should be able to latch onto it and disable its wheels, potentially causing a massive pileup in the process. Maybe the suspect is on the run. They're hiding out in the woods Rambo style. They're not a threat necessarily to anyone, but they will become one. They will fire at the police if they see them, so we're sending in the robots. Maybe we can just bullseye somebody from the air with a 50 cal shot from a drone. Well, we took care of the carjacker. We took care of the potential murder, and there's no trial necessarily involved in this. The ethics of using robotics in a context of lethal force is one that even the U.S. military grapples with. Why should the San Francisco Police Department be able to engage in it? And by the way, there would come a time at which they accidentally use the robot and, thinking the person is an active shooter, but it's someone having a mental breakdown. There will be lawsuits if they implement this. The lack of responsibility involved with using a remote-controlled robot, by the way, in such a situation, is a dicey one on its face anyway. We've seen this in the military. A lot of the kills that the U.S. military scores now, it's somebody sitting there with an array of sensors and shit and computers, and they're on a keyboard and using literally a remote control, I think, and piloting a drone. And then the drone drops a bomb on people. Why do you think that there's so much more collateral damage to civilian infrastructure over the last 20 years of warfare as compared with before, unless there was a mass engagement? Before, a counter-terrorist operation. It's boots on the ground. The SEALs just parachuted in, and they storm the facility, and then hell breaks loose, and hopefully, not too many of your guys get shot. Now, a drone 15,000 feet above simply drops a missile on the complex. The problem is that you may not have first-hand intel on exactly what's there. So yeah, you just killed Osama. It's too bad. You just killed a bunch of kids that he was holding in his rape dungeon. They all suffocated. They all got buried alive under the rubble. Whoops, we probably could have saved them if we had sent actual people in, but, we used a drone. Of course, with Osama, that's not the case. I'm using an example. Some high-level, high-profile terrorist asset is hiding in this cave. Well, we'll just pit-bomb the cave with a robot. Send in the suicide drone, and immolates everyone in there. Then they look through the bodies and they find out there were 100 kids in there or something like that. This sort of thing is exactly why killer robots should definitely not be allowed for use as a police resource. Hell, did you see, wasn't it San Francisco that had that patrol bot that looks a little bit like a stunted Protectron or something? Well, it looks or an oversized R2-D2, and it would go around and issue warnings to people and shit like that. And there was one point, I think there was a story, I don't know whether it's true, you can fact check me, where a woman wanted to report a crime and it told her to go away and then started whistling to itself or something. Yeah, those robots, if they're even semi-autonomous, could prove problematic, just to be clear. You're saying that because of one single line of code improperly implemented in the robot, it went haywire and started killing everyone in the room as opposed to the person with the gun that was holding the hostages? Who could have seen that coming? Oh, you mean that Smith and Sully over here piloting the robot, they took the shot but they missed anyway because, they just did and killed the hostage? And then you end up, the hostage takers, they're like, what the fuck just happened? The robot comes in and kills his hostage. Then the police are like, okay, you might as well drop your weapon because we're just going to air you out anyway. Surrender to the robot. Give it your pistol. This is a recipe for bad things to happen. Governments in general should be as reluctant as possible to use lethal force on their own population, at least if they are properly instituted. You're arguing for severing at least the fact that the person that potentially takes the shot would like to prefer not generally to kill that person. Well, the robot doesn't give a damn, and now you've got the cop piloting the robot, assuming it's not autonomous at all, and it's more like a video game. By putting a screen between two things, you dissociate from that physical reality. Psychologically very unhelpful when it comes to that. But why do you think that I have difficulty with public speaking and tend to be very shy in public, but here I have no problem with it? I'm talking to my fucking computer screen. Tens of thousands of people will watch this video, and by the way, that's great. But I wouldn't want to address tens of thousands of people in an auditorium without notes in front of me talking about San Francisco's coming killer robot dystopia. There's a screen in front of me. It dissociates me from the actual audience. By the way, you're dissociated from me, the person actually speaking. I'm not speaking to you in person. In person, I act a little bit differently. I have the same views, not quite the same personality unless I get to know a person really well, in which case I'm a chucklehead who cracks constant one-liners. Before I get to know a person, I tend to be a little bit on the shy and quiet side, something that people should know about me. I have social anxiety. I guess I'd have more anxiety being in San Francisco, though. Instead of just a dystopia of, 5 people with 6-figure salaries having to cram together into a one-room apartment to afford it, or a dystopia of poop everywhere on the sidewalk, or a dystopia where you've got a totally dysfunctional legal system anyway, now you're going to have killer robot dystopia. That's the other problem. Do you think that San Francisco's police and their commissioner, etc., and the politicians and prosecutors, etc., associated with the legal system really can be trusted with using robots to kill people? I don't. I think that's a fucking terrible idea. It's an accident waiting to happen, it's abuse waiting to happen, and it is mission creep waiting to happen. You watch if they incept this. Pretty soon, it won't just be exceptional circumstances. They will expand that term. Well, it used to mean there was a mass shooter, active, taking hostages, something akin to that. Now it's this person is threatening to shoot people. Well, he's clearly a threat. Take the shot, Biff and Sully. Take the shot because he's going to go and kill people. Well, he hasn't actually done anything violent yet, but he's threatening to do so. He's yelling. He might be having a schizophrenic breakdown and just be talking out his ass. Maybe he's not even armed, but we're going to kill him anyway. You watch. If it's incepted, that's exactly what will happen. That's about all. Peace out.